Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Arvind Thakur on stage and let him tell us what the rapid class do.
Thank you. Hope you come on by itself. Well, at the onset, I'd like to first thank GACS for having very graciously extended an invitation to me to be able to participate in this event and interact with you. You know, a few weeks ago, I was sitting with my son, who was a young banker, and we were having a conversation. He had just acquired a new smartwatch, and to his horror and my horror, a few days later, things that we were discussing started appearing in his social network as very specific pointed advertisements, and it appeared that somebody was eavesdropping on our conversation. It appeared, and in fact he was quite horrified, you know, that what we were discussing in private were now coming as advertisements to him in social media. And he said, "Dad, you know, I think I better switch off the microphone on my smartwatch because this is pretty uncanny." And I told him, "Uncle, that's his name, I just saw a video clip of Mark Zuckerman, who's the CEO of Facebook, being asked a very pointed question by the US Senate in the aftermath of the Cambridge Analytica scandal. The pointed question was, answer in yes or no. Mr. Zuckerman, do you listen to our conversations through the microphone?" And his answer was no. Of course, many people don't believe it. I don't know how many of you feel that what we've been discussing are the kinds of advertisements that you're getting on your social media. But it was interesting to try to understand why this happens. If Zuckerman is saying no, obviously, you know, the microphone is not the issue. And indeed, even after my son switched off the microphone, he was still getting, you know, very pointed advertisements from conversations that he's been having. And a little research showed that this is because Facebook and all the other social media tools that all of us use know everything about you. What you do, what your interests are, what you buy, where you're traveling, where you're visiting, everything is known by these tech companies. And it was pretty simple for them to be able to look at interests of two people, what's common between them, and if they are together, which is also very easily identifiable by their coordinates, because they know where you are all the time, to figure out that these would be the possible conversations that they would be having, and that is the subject of interest, and therefore, let me send some pointed conversations which would be interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 4th Industrial Revolution. This is what the 4th Industrial Revolution is all about, where emerging technologies are going to manage your lives, and all of us in society would need to adjust and cope up with this development. But what I want to discuss with you really is not the impact this is going to have on all of us. I think we are experiencing that. We all see these emerging technologies, which is artificial intelligence, robotics, machine learning, virtual reality, and whatnot, dramatically transforming businesses and impacting our social lives. But what I want to share with you and discuss with you, in light of the conversation that we are having on this topic about what's going to happen in the next decade, is that these disruptions caused by technologies are really discontinuities which are opportunities that we need to embrace. And India's opportunity lies in embracing the phenomena of this 4th Industrial Revolution. Now, if you go back to history, you just go back to history, you know, for the from 0 AD for about 1500 years, 2/3 of the world's GDP was straddled between the borders of India and China. Economic activity, 2/3 of the world's economic activity for 1500 years was happening between India and China. And that was, of course, mainly around agriculture, trade on natural resources, and a few manufactured cottage industry. When the steam engine, which created the first industrial revolution, was discovered and applied, this happened in Great Britain. And the economic activity began to shift from the east towards the west. And in fact, Britain became a global power. It colonized almost the rest of the world. And then the second industrial revolution happened, which was really around producing electricity, mass production, using these new inventions to make production more productive. That is something which the United States did more effectively. And so economic activity started shifting even more to the west. Went to Europe, then went on to the US, and the United States reaped the benefits of those technological changes and inventions. And then came, the two world wars and the Great Depression following that, and that made the US even stronger. So we found during that period, Russia and China, they had embraced communism, and Europe went into a depression. So the US really became a global power. So it reaped the benefits of these industrial revolutions. Around 1950, economic activity started shifting back towards the east, with Japan and Korea actually surprisingly coming out very strong from the world wars, and China opening up its markets about 1978, and then India following in 1990 with its brain power and creation of the technology industry, which started permeating globally. So we began to see economic activity beginning to shift towards the east during this period. And in fact, now when we look at the fourth industrial revolution, which is really all about deploying and using these emerging technologies, we are at a point where we can take advantage of this continuity and lead in the next decade. Now, why has artificial intelligence suddenly emerged on the scene? The fact that algorithms could be used by computers to make computers behave like human beings and think like human beings have been in place since the 1990s. These algorithms have been there all along. But it's only now that these algorithms have been able to be put into use and actually do things like I just described to you. So you have these artificial intelligence people, robots, which are processing massive amounts of data and thinking like human beings. And human beings really look at patterns when they are taking decisions. That's how computers are behaving. So why is that beginning to happen now? It's happening because of the confluence of three forces. We had these algorithms, which was one of the forces. But it was only till recently do we have the computing power available to deploy these algorithms and the data sets on which we can apply these algorithms. These three things are now coming together only now to be able to create capability in machines to behave like human beings. So this is now a reality. And in fact, if you look at the first, second, and third industrial revolutions, The first and second took almost 100 years. Alright, the third, which is around digital and computers, another 50 years. We're seeing that time getting compressed. So it's only the last 5 years that we've seen this tremendous development where now machines are beginning to think and operate like human beings. What that means to us are many things. We're going to learn now to work with machines. Existing skill sets may not be as relevant going forward. We have to constantly keep reskilling ourselves. So what we're beginning to see now, you might have heard this cliched phrase that data is a new oil. You might have heard this term, which is now often used. If you just roll back about 8 years, 2012, of the 5 most valuable companies in the world, 3 were oil companies. Alright? That was Royal Dutch Shell, it was ExxonMobil, and China. These 3 were the most valuable companies in the world. Today, if you look at amongst the top 5 most valuable companies in the world, you have Alphabet, which is Google, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft. The 5th one is Berkshire. The 6th is Facebook. And if I look at the 7th and the 8th, it's Tencent and Alibaba. These are the most valuable companies in the world. Now, what is common amongst these most valuable companies in the world? All of them manage data. Whether it's a Google or an Alibaba, they all manage data. So the most valuable companies in the world are those companies which make sense out of data. And the reason for that is, there is no artificial intelligence without data. Machines learn from data. So these algorithms, they need to be applied to data. And when data is fed into them, it constantly keeps learning and improving itself, just like human beings. We also, when we are fed with more data, we learn more things. Exactly the same way, machines also learn from data. So, these companies have become valuable because they've been able to manage and process data. And the reason why I'm emphasizing this is that when we look at the next decade, what is going to be critical is the ability to create infrastructure that can manage data. When we look at applications, whether they are financial applications, agricultural applications, in your area, whether they are property applications, or facilities management applications, they all require data. And all of us in corporate services know that our job is really to deliver a superior experience. And machines with data and knowledge of your customers allow you to deliver a superior experience. I was chatting with a technical manager at Zomato, and he told me that they capture 1 petabyte of data every day, which means they know exactly what your eating behavior is like, what you eat, how much you eat, when you eat, what is your preference on which day of the week. Everything is known to them so that they are able to present to you those flavors of cuisine that you most want to enjoy. The competitor Swiggy is using artificial intelligence to communicate with you. They figure that in India, the next 100 million users of smartphones would be very different from the past 100 million users of smartphones, because earlier users of smartphones knew how to read and write and could type and key in. But the next 100 million probably don't know how to key in. And therefore, the most important interface would be voice or visual interfaces. And therefore, they're using artificial intelligence to be able to understand what people say. In our country, you have different dialects. So, you want a chicken, you can ask for a murga, or a murgi, or a kori, or there are different ways of expressing that you want chicken. The machine should be able to understand that this consumer wants chicken, and that AI, just like a human being, would be able to understand that and will be able to service it. So using technology, these companies are delivering a superior experience. And that is what is really making all the difference that we can see. Now, when we talk about all this, how does it impact us? First of all, data is valuable. If you look at China, China is way ahead in the rest of the world, even ahead of the United States, in these new emerging technologies and use of artificial intelligence. The reason being, the state has all the data. Unlike India or other democratic countries which are concerned about privacy, there is no such concern. The state has all the data. And so the AI machines are continuously learning because they have all the data. One of the biggest problems we have in this country is, while data exists, it's not accessible to us. And so we are looking at the next decade. We need to create an infrastructure where data is available to us. And if it is available to us, then we have the ability to use that data to train our AI engines and the algorithms to be able to deliver a better service and a better experience. So China has big advantage because they have all the data. The other advantage that they have is that they have brain power. Like India, they have a lot of people, and they've been able to train and create a lot of engineers. India also has a lot of brain power. So on that front, we're equal. So when you're looking at creating a digital infrastructure, you need brain power and you need data. When it comes to brain power, what is really required is, while you may have the brains, you need to have those brains to be skilled to be able to deliver, the results that you want. And so one of the things that we need to work on in order to lead in the next decade is to really reskill our workforce to be able to embrace these new technologies, because the future is here. With the fourth industrial revolution, we have to learn to coexist with these new technologies. Now this has an implication for all of us, which means we cannot rest on our degree or training or existing knowledge, but we need to get into a mode where we are constantly learning new things. Because as I mentioned earlier, the pace of change is so fast. The fourth industrial revolution has happened in 5 years. Something where the first 3 industrial revolutions took 50 to 100 years. So you can imagine what is the pace of change. So when we look at leading in the next decade, I would say there are 3 things that we need to understand. Number 1, we are at the cusp of the fourth industrial revolution, which is a major discontinuity. And whenever there's a discontinuity, there's an opportunity. We've seen historically those nations which have embraced these revolutions in discontinuity, in technology discontinuity, have seen economic activity shift to that location. So, point number one is there's a huge opportunity ahead of us with the fourth industrial revolution and the emergence of these emerging technologies. But to take advantage of this opportunity, we need to do two things. Number one, we need to have a digital infrastructure that allows us to have access to data. Today, if you look at our digital infrastructure for financial services, it's leading the world. So when you look at what we've been able to do in terms of our ability to transfer money, to make payments digitally, our infrastructure leads the world. It leads the world because we've invested in two platforms. We've invested in Aadhaar, which allows you to identify an individual, and we've invested in a unified payment interface, UPI. These two platforms enable you to transfer 5 rupees, 10 rupees, 1 rupee, small transactions. I noted one of the biggest beneficiaries of this whole movement of digital payments was our neighborhood Panwala. I was talking to him, he had this ATM, code over there, and he was saying, earlier my customers used to come and I used to have a khata, and they used to write how many cigarettes and pan they had taken, and I would chase them every month for my collections. Now, when a guy takes one cigarette, I just transfer from Paytm 10 rupees for that cigarette, and I don't have any outstandings, business is flourishing. So, India has been able to adapt technology which is relevant for its society, for its masses, and in the process, being able to create a digital infrastructure. And this data that is getting generated is extremely valuable. We're looking at, for example, agriculture tech, using technology to improve farm productivity. Now to do that, you need data from different sources. You need data of forestry, of green covers, space satellite. Unfortunately, all this data is lying in silos all over the place. What we need to do is figure out a method by which it can be made available to the entrepreneurs and innovators in the country, which is a huge movement around startups that we are beginning to see, to create these new innovative applications that can help improve productivity in our farms. But it requires data. So, the second important thing is to create digital infrastructure that allows data to be accessible to all. And third but not the least is the simpler issue is bringing in the technology. The bigger challenge is to use that technology. And to use the technology, people need to be educated in being able to use that technology. And therefore the third most important thing is to be able to create a skilled workforce that can work with all these technologies to deliver better productivity. I foresee, as well as most observers foresee, that many of the roles that all of us are playing are going to get replaced very soon. Because a lot of things that we do can now be done by machines which can do things like human beings. So if that's going to be happening, you are likely to get redundant. And therefore, for us to remain relevant, we need to invest in reskilling ourselves on those technologies so that we can work along with these machines and deliver better productivity. The recent report, which came out by the World Economic Forum, had said that these emerging technologies are going to erode 73 million jobs. 73 million jobs are going to go away. The way we do things today, we're not going to be doing it the same way going forward. At the same time, 133 million new jobs would get created, but they'll be very different from the way you look at jobs today. So, I would just end by encouraging you to recognize that things are moving fast, not to be complacent with the current level of knowledge and experience that you have, and wholeheartedly embrace the new technologies, because each one of them are going to be impacting your lives in the very near future. Thank you.